Welcome, believers. Welcome, you wonderfully weird people. Welcome to UFO Aliens and Weird Stuff, right? Now, we all know the famous stories, don't we? The Rendlesham incident, the Roswell incident, the Phoenix Lights. You know, the massive story that gets a lot of coverage. We all know those, right? But I would like to tell you the little stories. The stories that go under the radar. And now, this is a story from one of my TikTok followers who would like to share her encounter with the unexplained and to tell the story to all you believers in the weird and wonderful, right? And if anyone's going to believe it, it's us lot, isn't it, right? Because we are genuinely into it, right? Now, I've called this Frozen by a UFO, the night I couldn't move. Now, what would you do if something impossible appeared right outside your window? Because it happened to Linda, right? At the exact time, every single night. As I say, tonight's story comes from Linda. This encounter happened in the UK, and what she experienced wasn't just a one-time sighting, because whatever she saw was already watching her, right? Now, it was a quiet night, 9:30 p.m. Linda had decided to head to bed early, but there was one small problem, right? She had a cat. Her cat was called Top Cat. What a cool name, Top Cat, and it was still outside. So, not wanting to leave him out in the cold, she walked over to the sitting room window, reaching for the handle to let him in. Right, and as her hand touched the cold silver latch, and that's when she saw something weird, something caught her eye, right? Just above the window, hovering in the garden, was something massive, something unexplained. Should we call it a UFO, a craft, a UAP, a flying saucer? Whatever you want to call it, it was hovering in a garden. Now, it was metallic silver, completely silent and impossibly still. Now, lights glowed across its surface, apparently. Now, Linda says there were two bright white lights, two eerie green lights, and two deep purple lights, right? And they were facing each other in perfect symmetry. It didn't flicker, it didn't move, it just hovered there, watching. Now, put yourself in her position, right? Now, Linda's first instinct was simple, right? Get to a phone, video it, phone someone, just get to a phone. But, right, as I say, get to the phone, but because no one would believe you, would you? No one would believe you. I mean, if I told someone, no one would believe me. But strangely enough, right, this is the weird thing. She couldn't move. Right, she tried, but she couldn't. Now, she says, right, let me do that, right? She said, like, she couldn't move. Her hand remained frozen on the window handle, as if it had been locked in place. She tried to pull away. Nothing. She just couldn't do it. Her body simply wouldn't respond. All she could do was stare at the window at this unidentified flying objects. Now, time seemed to stretch like it would. Seconds feeling like minutes, as it would, right? Then suddenly the craft moved slowly, deliberately. It drifted away to the right. And then she said it moved forward, and then without a single sound it began to rise. What a sight, right? No engine, no wind, no noise at all, just silence. The metallic object ascended into the night sky, gliding away towards the nearby park until it vanished. Right, what a sighting. Mate, that's fantastic, right? But there is something else about Linda's experience, something that often gets overlooked. That moment when she couldn't move, her hand frozen on the window handle, her body completely unresponsive, watching but unable to act, right? Perhaps because it sounds so bizarre, many people dismiss it. It's called temporary paralysis, sometimes described as being caused by a beam or a laser or a light. Now, even within the UFO circles, it's a detail that's often brushed aside. Maybe because it's too strange, maybe because it's too unbelievable, possible. But what if that's a mistake? right? Because this isn't an isolated claim. In fact, it's a repeated detail, and it's found in encounters across decades. People seeing something they shouldn't and suddenly unable to move. So I'm going to give you an example, right? It's called the William Wallace encounter, right? And I'll tell you this little story, and it explains the temporary paralysis, right? Okay, one of the most intriguing cases of that is William Wallace, right? But he is just an ordinary man, right, driving home one evening. As he travelled along a quiet road, he noticed something ahead, right? A strange object, he described it as. And it was just hovering there, right? Now, he described it as pretty unnatural, really, because it sat there silent. Now, drawn towards it, he brought his car to a stop and stepped out to get a closer look. But the moment he approached it, this is when it happened, right? He froze. He couldn't move, right? He just froze solid, completely paralysed, unable to move. It's not as if he didn't want to, he simply couldn't. Unable to react, just like Linda. Now, what makes this case even more compelling, and that's why I'm telling you this one, is that Wallace and his wife were the only witnesses that night. But when they reported what happened, local police, who knew him personally, stated they believed his account. They were convinced he was telling the truth. What makes it good? It's a good story, right? And cases like this keep appearing. Right? Different people, different areas, different ages, different places, different years. But the chilling detail is all the same, right? A presence in the sky, a human being, me, you, Linda, rendered completely helpless. So when Linda stood at her window, unable to move, watching that UFO drift away, technically speaking, as far as paralysis is concerned, she wasn't alone, right? Because others had stood exactly where she stood, frozen, watching, unable to move, even though they want to. They're just stuck in place. So, back to the story, and just like that, Linda could move again, as if nothing had happened. Now, she opened the window to let Top Cat inside and closed it. So her cat's safe, right? And walked away. But something, she said, wasn't right. It felt like she was in a trance, a little bit detached from reality. She sat down, shook her head, trying to snap back to reality. And I know that feeling, right? Now, I haven't seen a UFO, but I know what she means. And then she noticed her cat. Top Cat had bolted straight upstairs and hid under the bed. He didn't come out. Not that night, he didn't. And not until the next day. What's weird, right? Because cats, they say that cats can sense stuff, can't they? And maybe old Top Cat there was sensing something unnatural, right? Now, Linda, the following day, had a doctor's appointment. So while she was out, she ran into a friend. Now, this gets her, this is good. Still shaking, she called him over and quietly asked, look, did you see anything unusual last night? In the garden. So her friend looked at her for a little while and replied, what, you mean that UFO? So Linda froze. I don't think she was expecting that sort of response. And she said, how did you know that? Now her friend hesitated, then said, look, it's always there. Every night around 9:30, just simply floating in the garden. I have watched it from my window. Now bear this in mind, right? Now, many people ask a very genuine question, right? And it's, if something like this is happening in a built-up area, why doesn't anyone else see it? And it's a fair question. In a very busy city, only 2 people saw this huge craft, right? But Linda's experience isn't unique. There are other cases with the same eerie pattern, right? A very busy little town, a housing estate, You know, where only a couple of people see some amazing, unusual object, right? So this is the story of Ethel Fields, and it's set in Dorset in September 1977, right? I'm going to tell you the story, and you tell me, right? Inside the house, her husband Morris and her daughter Teresa were sat watching telly, right? Totally unaware of what was happening outside. Right, now the encounter begins. Ethel stood in her garden, taking washing off the line. Simple thing, right? Do it all the time. Then a humming sound, right? She heard a weird humming sound. So she looked up, you know, wondering where the humming sound's coming from. At first, she saw nothing. Nothing in the sky, nothing to report, nothing unusual. Then suddenly, a round object appeared. Right, moving towards her. Right, but bearing in mind, she's only taken the washing down. Now, she said it was grey in colour with a dome on top. She said it glowed constantly, casting light all around it. You know, no one else is seeing this, right? Casting light all around it. And within it, a brighter blue-yellow light, shimmering. Again, no one else is seeing this apart from her, right? The craft was low. She described it as very low, around 20, and it was around 20 foot wide, close enough that she claimed she could see inside this vehicle, and she actually saw the occupants, right? She saw shapes, she saw beings on board, right? And yeah, like I say, right, inside the house, only what, meters away, right, nobody saw nothing. No one saw anything. How can that be, right? No one heard anything. Nothing at all, right? These are two encounters with different places, right? Different times, but the same questions remain. Why do only certain people see these things, while others completely unaware? You know, because maybe, right, and this is going on a limb here, right? Just maybe these sightings aren't meant for everyone. And if that's true, and I'm going on a whim, right, then the real question we need to ask was, why was Linda chosen? Now, why was Linda chosen? Yeah, I mean, if not everybody gets to see these things. Now, on the abduction side of things, and I'm going on a tangent again, right? I'm massively into these sort of stories. Apparently, when these people get abducted by aliens, right, they get floated through windows. They get floated through solid walls. They get floated through doors that aren't opened. Right, now, if aliens can literally beam you from one room to the other, or break you down so you can go through solid objects and appear at the other side, then I am pretty sure they are capable of choosing someone to see and choosing other people not to. You know, if you see a UFO in the sky, it's because they want you to see it. So what do you think? What do you think of Linda's story? I find it fascinating, and I thank Linda for sharing the story, because it's brilliant. So look, if you've ever seen something you couldn't explain, something that didn't belong in the sky, share your story below, because sometimes the truth is out there, but me and you, us, we've got to tell it to get it out there. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This was UFO Aliens and Weird Stuff, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Linda. Thanks for sharing. Your story was fantastic, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.